Steam has been dominating the gaming space for a long time now. Many people play there, and yet even for a company like Valve, Steam is sometimes demonized or ridiculed by the access media. So today I want to talk about something concerning, which is that Steam has now told developers to sit down, shut up, and stop attacking their fans, and they aren't taking it very well, and neither is the journalists. Firstly, from The Gamer, and it's titled, "It's a Battle You Won't Win, Valve's Advice for Developers Facing Toxic Abuse on Steam Forums is pretty bleak." This story comes from the creator of an adventure game coming to Steam named Coquette Dragoon. As you can see here, this is the store page for that game, and according to this developer who goes by Ivy May, they've become concerned with how toxic Steam's forums were becoming, according to them. I know, it's not a new problem, but something that has, as The Gamer and this Ivy May puts it, has just been getting worse over the past few years because players have become more toxic and mean in general on the internet, or at least that's how The Gamer puts it themselves in this article, and here's what they said. "Gaming is sadly toxic all over right now, but undoubtedly one of the worst places for it is the Steam forums, where anyone with an account can say basically whatever they want without much fear of retribution or being moderated. While Valve does have things in place for toxic players, its official advice for developers facing abuse is a little telling of how bad things can get." The official document that Ivy May was sent by Steam was posted, but sadly they have since deleted this official document. And as of now anyway, I'm unable to show you it, but I was able to at least find how it was worded somewhat. So to sum it up, Valve has made it in their official statement that developers must not engage in arguments with players no matter the reasoning, and should instead just take a break and not pick fights on the internet. As The Gamer's article puts it here, one line from this document reads, "Don't try to censor players or get into public arguments, it's a battle you won't win," while another simply tells developers to take a break instead of trying to figure out why they're being targeted. The Gamer continues by saying this, "Valve even points out to developers that the abuse will eventually return to normal, and that it has seen many cases where a surge of negative sentiment will hopefully burn out after time. That might be true, but it's not exactly comforting and makes it plain as day just how horrible things must be for developers if even Steam itself recommends just writing it out." So while this may sound bleak at first glance, what Steam is really telling these developers to do, and I'll just say it bluntly, is to stop acting like children and be professional adults when it comes to interacting with their consumer base. It may sound harsh or even brash, but what Steam is implying here is not exactly a bad thing if you ask me. Because while they may sound crude with how The Gamer words them here, how Valve goes about their business is proof alone that it is the tried and true way of doing things like this. Because Valve is right. When it comes to Steam, or any other platform really, fighting your consumer base is truly not a fight that you're ever really going to win. And the reasoning is obvious, because ultimately it's not the players that need you, but the other way around. We've seen countless games fail that have pushed all sorts of things, or games where developers fought with customers either in public forums or even Discord servers. I can think of last year's Helldivers 2 moderators fighting players and banning them, or consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc., which initially began because Chris Kindred, who worked at Sweet Baby, tried to get Valve to ban Kerbrutus Rambo for implementing his Sweet Baby Inc. detected plugin. And since that story blew up, Kerbrutus' Steam plugin has almost 500,000 members on Steam that use his plugin to filter games that are attached in any way to Sweet Baby or other consultancy firms, as you're seeing on screen here. But this also ties to how the industry tried to intervene and completely dismantle how that story with Kerbrutus was being handled. Need I remind you of this article from GameIndustry.biz titled, "When That Was All Going Down, Why Are Valve and Discord Permitting Harassment Against Sweet Baby Inc. Steam and Discord are being used as a home base for hateful reactionaries to single out and harass game developers." And here's the thing, this was when Gamergate 2 started in the thick of it, a year and then some removed. We now know for sure what was going on wasn't exactly harassment. Some of it was, sure, but generally speaking, the entire rejection of Sweet Baby and all of that, it wasn't Steam's fault. Because what this really comes down to is that the select game developers and publishers who were a part of that ideology, which I mean the whole let's protect Sweet Baby side, were doing exactly what Steam has told this Ivy May developer to not do when facing harassment or discourse. The right course of action in hindsight would have been to ignore the Kerbrutus Rambo plugin, and I guarantee you had they done that, Gamergate 2, it would never have happened. But instead, in their own hubris, especially especially in 2024, when the media believed they were still in control of the narrative. They instead doubled and even tripled down, trying to use every trick in their books to spread that discourse to as many corners of the industry as possible. They tried to make Steam submit, and that was the crux of the problem, which is that the side of so-called tolerance and dignity resorted immediately to fear-mongering, cancellation, and scare tactics the moment that the big companies, like Steam in this instance, did not bend to their insane demands. And the hubris of the game journalists, of the sweet babies or developers who, despite making games, seem to just hate their audiences, which can only mean that they do this for the money and the money alone and not really the love of the art, truly did try to silence any criticism or movement that directly opposed their views and beliefs. It was, yes, textbook projection, which brings me back to the article I spoke about here in the beginning, with Steam telling these developers it's a battle that you won't win, because while this may piss off your usual media types, what Steam is saying is absolutely true. Because Steam isn't trying to victimize or gaslight these developers, they're just telling you how it is. The truth is that you cannot win against the full might of the internet. It doesn't really matter who or what you are, it's never really going to happen, because there's no reality or situation where Steam would or should have caved into the insane demands of people who only wanted to censor others because they didn't agree with them 100% of the time. That's not how free speech works, which, trust me, pisses these types of people off more than anything else. Of course, we know for the last year and then some, these types have attempted to paint the customer as vitriolic evil monsters ever since. And what the industry has done in response, not just to Gamergate but regular customers who voice their opinions online, is proving that these types are never going to learn. For an example, back in March 2025, CNN ran a hit piece against Gamergate. I know, in 2025, like, are we being serious here? Anyway, it's titled How Gamergate Foreshadowed the Toxic Hellscape That the Internet Has Now Become. Here's what Harmeet Kaur, whose name I swear I've heard before in other articles, said about Gamergate, and how institutions like Steam and Discord have just allowed this so-called hate speech to prosper and fester. Here's what she said. Hate speech proliferates in online spaces. Algorithms designed to maximize user engagement amplify divisive content that inevitably leaves us outraged. Disinformation and misinformation spread on social media at rates seemingly impossible to contain. If that weren't enough, bad faith actors exploit these dynamics, distorting reality for part of the population and deepening political divides. Let me just say that it's hella ironic that CNN of all places allowed this to be published, because that same two paragraphs could also explain CNN's entire motive for the past decade to a T as well. But I guess these types are so deep in the psyops that they don't even realize they just literally told on themselves, but let's keep going. CNN's Harmeet Kaur continues with this. People who were paying close attention to certain corners of the internet saw this reality coming more than a decade ago in Gamergate, in which an angry online mob waged a virulent harassment campaign against women and diversity in the video game industry. You see what I mean? This is exactly why Steam has those rules in place when it comes to how developers should act with their customers. Shame those rules don't also apply to Harmeet Kaur of CNN here, because what she's doing with this article is exactly what she claims is wrong about Gamergate. She's also trying to divide sides with political gaslighting and going against exactly what Steam believes is the wrong way to go about things like this. Like Steam said, you can't win this fight because they're right. You should never attack your customers because it's pointless. Which is why it's more sad than anything else that despite the monumental losses faced by the sides of games media, they have instead continued their desperate attacks when they could just cease them and build bridges. But I think the true reason for why they don't do this is because they were never really interested in bridging the gap, so to speak, with the players or the customers at all. They don't want that connection. They don't want to see eye to eye, but what they really want is what they had before, which is where they were actually above you and looking down at you, where they had the access and them alone, not some YouTuber or Twitch person instead. They frankly, let's be honest, don't really see us as equals, and it's kind of sad to see, because they're trying to say it's this side that is full of hate, yet it's clear only one side of the situation has the other in their heads ranked free straight 24/7. And it's not the side that I'm on, trust me, because I don't even know the names of most of these people who probably think someone like me should probably just die. But then if you also ask me, your online credibility is paramount to people taking what you say seriously. And Steam, unlike these journalists, is not in this to put their foots on the necks of players. Instead, Steam and Valve is just trying to build that bridge, or at least suggest it, to these media types. Because they know that without the loyal customer base buying games on Steam every waking minute of the day, what even is Steam then at the end of the day? Well, let's be real, it would be nothing without the people who play, interact, and purchase the games on their platform. And the same can be said about the integrity or viewership of a journalist or YouTuber too. There's no reason or viable outcome where you fight the very people who have no genuine reason to support you other than the goodness of their own hearts. And we saw that in real time when the games made by people who hated their consumer base imploded. People lost their jobs, studios closed down, and franchises died. And these types, like this Harmeet core of CNN, or I guess even The Gamer, will then instead try to gaslight you into believing that all games are like that, but they aren't they? No, we know the reality is plenty of games succeed despite this so-called infestation they claim exists. Didn't Clair Obscur Expedition 33 just sell like 2 million copies and smash the barriers of its own genre? How could a game like Clair Obscur do so well today? Go look at their socials, go look at Clair Obscur's Twitter, and then you tell me where in any of their posts do they villainize, attack, or belittle the paying customer no matter the ideology. I'll save you the time because they don't, because look, the reality is there's gonna be people who play your games or consume your content that don't agree with you on everything under the sun. The same way I'm sure not everyone watching this video has the same belief system or politics that I do, and hey, that's okay. We don't have to agree on everything in order for us to be civilized with one another, but this is where the disconnect lies, doesn't it? Because for these types, the CNNs, the gamers, or that Ivy May, who I'm not saying is evil here, but simply is the catalyst for this story, but the way they all reacted to Steam telling them to just act like adults and shut up and stop attacking customers, it kind of tells you everything. Just sell your games, you morons. Nobody cares who you voted for, or whether you think a man can become a woman. Just keep your personal politics to yourself, sell your games, and don't make them into some stupid culture war or ideological talking point instead. But I think the other side, that's the journalists and the devs who back them, can't really shy away from this, because to reject it would be to reject their very own nature as human beings. It would be like telling a bear to not eat meat or an eagle to stop preying on fish. It's just baked into their DNA at this point is what I'm saying. And every time these media types don't attack the player or the customer, their biases and their beliefs, they start whispering in their ears like the Green Goblin mask to them. They pretty much can't help themselves. They're just itching for a taste of that controversy. But going about the way these types have has clearly not worked for anyone at all the way that they wanted it to. Because Steam telling these developers en masse to just shut up and make video games and having this order be received the way that it has is proof alone. Because let's be real, Steam is old school. They are the old guard. They're a private company owned by Valve. And they're not exactly full of people who went to school for gender studies or anything like that. I would wager the majority of Valve's employees are probably older people, likely boomers who didn't grow up or were taught how to make games like many current age developers or writers have. Because we know for a fact many new game developers are being brought up from the inception of their very first step into this industry with the mentality that things like gender, sex, and white man is bad always being core tenets to how they will view video game design, and even their customers for the rest of the time as long as they continue to operate within this industry. But sadly, this indoctrination has worked to a degree, and we can see how it still rears its ugly head no matter what. And I guarantee that someone like this Harmeet core of CNN is one of those very people that was raised and molded by these very same propagandas that were disguised as education ways of being brought up too. And maybe that's why it's so difficult for these types to change their opinions or even their viewpoints. Because what you're asking them to do is pretty much go back on everything they are as journalists or developers. They were told white man bad, woman very good, diversity very important, and gameplay comes secondary to the message of the game always. None of this has worked, yet despite that they continue to push it regardless. And this entire CNN article is like digital poison to what Steam tells their co-partners to push. Listen to this, how it reads. In the years since, as some experts and observers see it, social media platforms on which Gamergate transpired failed to adequately combat toxic content and online abuse. close, while lawmakers, traditional media outlets, and much of the public fail to see its relevance beyond the world of video games. From flooding the zone to the use of memes, the tactics once employed by a niche community of gamers are all too familiar today. They've since developed into a political strategy that's routinely used in the halls of power. To use a popular internet shorthand, everything is Gamergate. You see what I mean? They've learned nothing, despite the Infernos raising their resources to the ground. Look at Polygon. It's been gutted. Giant Bomb, as their name implies, basically exploded and people got laid off en masse recently too. Why are these types refusing to understand that this need to be in constant war mode is just getting them nowhere? This is a time of rebuilding, of fixing things, not burning down the foundation after it's just been set again. And Steam was the #1 battleground zero for Gamergate 2. It was because Steam wouldn't bend to the whims of journalists that it then caused the same journalists to lose their collective minds and make the situation even worse. But if you ask me, what Steam did despite the backlash and demands of the industry was the right thing to do. They're not here to police your language or attack their customers. Thankfully, the people at Valve have their heads screwed on straight. And they know, had they gave in to Chris Kindred of Sweet Baby Inc.'s demands or places like GameIndustry.biz, the alternative fallout to such a situation would not have made Steam a better place for anyone objectively, except the people who advocate to censor anything they disagree with. Let's talk hypotheticals, okay? Let's say that Steam did bend the knee. They banned Brutus Rambo, they banned all the Gamergate talk, they just gave in and complied to every single demand that the hit pieces by the journalists who demand their opinions be taken seriously just happened, okay? What would have happened then? Where would that have left Steam in the aftermath? We know what would have happened. Steam would have been protested, lambasted, mass exodus, even because the players would realize the politically neutral platform that Steam has been for so long was now suddenly picking sides and drawing lines in the sand. And the fact that even to this day that you have websites complaining that Steam didn't back their insane demands well over a year ago, that just shows you that these journalists, these media types, even some developers are just political chameleons and they can't shake that off. And they will always lambast you, they will always attack you, and they will ruin your image for as long as it takes until you give into their demands. But the truth is that Steam and Valve never will, nor should they ever do that. Because the alternative is just financial oblivion if Gabe Newell and his buddies decided that one day, you know what, maybe that CNN journalist was right. Maybe all these people who give us money all the time to play video games on our platforms are bigots after all. And we should censor, silence, and destroy their free speech to appease a bunch of journalists who, let's be real, don't buy games on Steam anyways. They're called access media for a reason, people. It's because they get free access to everything they cover. These people don't buy or support anything in the industry because they don't have to. Why would they? It's not their job to open their wallets. That's why we're all here, right? Oh, it's our job to support this game and that game, and these journalist types just exist to write articles, play their free games, and when something doesn't get in line the way that they want 100%, they'll just write a hit piece after hit piece until they get what they want in the end. But it all comes down to the same principles. Why would you, as a platform holder like Steam, give in to the demands of a group of a vocal minority who both don't buy your games nor respect you when you go against their claims? That just proves they weren't your allies, and all they really see you as is more so like a horse that they have to ride. But when it comes time to maintain that horse, that's someone else's job. It's not mine. Leave me alone. I'm gonna go play my free games now that I don't pay for, and maybe I'll just, I don't know, ruin someone's reputation because they said something I don't like online instead. And that's really how modern journalism works. The profession used to be about being a voice for the people, but now it's just mostly used to actively work against and divide the very people that they were meant to serve. If Steam bent to the needs of journalists, it would just objectively make the platform worse. And I think if you have a platform where people pay a lot of money to play tons of games on your platform, the last thing you should do is silence or police their voices on your forums. Because customers, no matter how they feel about your products or services, they have the right to voice their opinions and concerns. And if you instead have a platform where you can buy games, but you then silence and censor their speech, that would not be a platform that people would find worth investing into. I really hope that when Valve inevitably becomes more in line with younger people's values, it doesn't suddenly become a communist hellscape or anything like that in the future, because that could destroy Valve and Steam, and really what's holding that platform together is quite literally Gabe Newell and his friends. And once they all, sadly die, or I guess retire, because I mean, they are old, it's just the reality. If Steam in the future eventually becomes ran by some, I don't know, younger, weirdo, liberal, communist-like people, I guess the PC gaming space will just splinter even more. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but if that does happen, I'm sure the same journalists will be licking their lips, yelling, "Finally," as everything just burns around them. And the point of the matter is that Valve and Steam don't owe these media types anything. They will continue to make millions and billions by simply doing the exact opposite of what the access media has told them to do. And Valve would be smart to never listen to the demands of people who, again, never buy games on their platforms anyways. The fact stuff like this was being pushed when Gamergate 2 was exploding, it was concerning. This is from that GameIndustry.biz article from earlier in this video, and it's also from 2024. And look how they word things and how they make demands of places like Steam when it comes to Kerberutus's plugin. Here's what they said. Despite that increased spike, Valve and Discord have allowed the Curation page and server to remain online. Posts from the group's moderators indicate the companies have warned them that content on their platforms may result in their being removed, forcing them to take some additional moderation steps but still leaving them online. They then continue. Why? Both platforms have made it clear they don't want to be used as vectors for harassment, but slippery language in their terms of service has enabled bad actors to turn their platform developers do business to ones where developers can be targeted for abuse. That hole needs to be closed fast. Yes, that hole needs to be closed fast, doesn't it? That's journo jargon for Steam must listen and comply to our demands or else. And at one point, GameIndustry.biz brings in Kim Belair, that's the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc. during the beginning of Gamergate 2 last year. And here's what they and Belair said about Steam allowing what they deemed hate speech as it reads here. Kim Belair urged Valve and Discord to recognize that harassment campaigns are continuously evolving and that communication platforms need to keep pace with how they're being used to spread hate. It's clear that some kind of evolution is needed because this will only get bigger, and I don't mean for us, Kim said. If this playbook can work as well as it did 10 years ago with Gamergate, it's going to keep working in certain ways and they will find something bigger and worse to do than this. They continue by saying Steam and Discord are two powerful tools that connect players and developers on a daily basis. Their policies should be engineered toward fostering better connections and even giving players space to voice their dislikes about a game or the video game industry as a whole. But that's not what's happening here. Bad actors have exploited loopholes in their policies, and a small consulting studio with little say in the grand scheme of game production is paying the price. So that's not exactly what Steam is for, and it is being used as intended. Again, this is the problem. They twist the words. It's not up to Steam to police or silence their customers. That would only cause Armageddon for them in the future. And then they would be paying the price financially and reputation-wise by giving into the demands of people who don't lose out financially by Steam giving into their ideas, and that's the point. Which, if you ask me, platforms, no matter what is Steam, YouTube, Twitter, all of them, they should be politically neutral and should not cater to any one side over the other. Sure, these websites or platforms may have videos or games or discussions where you don't agree 100% with them, but that's not grounds for the complete and utter censorship of ideas that you deem unfit to exist because they hurt your feelings. If YouTube, for example, gave into the demands of these types, my channel would not exist because they would say that I'm hateful. When in reality, I am just someone telling you how the players and customers feel about things, and where does the censorship end then? Could it, in theory, any YouTube channel that criticizes games or development be deemed hateful now? That would mean that no video that criticizes or examines anything would be allowed then. Oh, you spoke about the predatory practices of, say, Activision Blizzard? Well, Microsoft and Blizzard don't like that, so sorry, your channel now needs to go. You see what I mean? The slippery slope is beyond saving at this point, and the best course of action is simple. Do not attack your customers at all, in any capacity, and that's all Steam is asking these developers and by proxy anyone who sells things on their platforms to do. You can believe in any god, religion, or whatever politics you want, but you should remember that Steam is not responsible for your mental health the same way PlayStation or Xbox are either. And if you feel the need to express your political opinions, that is up to you, but it does not protect you from the backlash or criticism of what your opinions are. So no matter how hurt or sad you get from this, the world does not revolve around your feelings or beliefs 100%. And I think a lot of journalists and some developers are learning the hard way that if you want to make money and exist in this space, that you do need to play ball and stop trying to villainize both platforms and customers who may not agree with you 100% of the time. And whether Whether these types agree or disagree with that is totally up to them, but don't blame the consumer or Steam or any other platform for not coddling you like a child simply because you're not getting your way 100% of the time, because that's not how the real world works. Maybe it does in your college professor's schoolroom, but outside those four walls, nobody is needing to cater to your insane demands just because others have in the past. We're not children, and these are businesses, and while I'm sure this wounded animal mentality will no doubt continue with both journalists and developers, regardless, it is now Steam's #1 mission objective to ensure that you are treated like a precious baby that's made of gold instead. Come on, you're all adults. Start acting like ones. And stop villainizing customers if your games don't sell or they don't agree with your moronic takes. And if that bothers you, turn off your computer, put the phone away, and go for a walk. And then take a long, hard look in the mirror, and maybe you'll come to the conclusion that it's not actually Steam or Valve's fault you're insufferable to be around, but it's actually you, the journalists and developers, who think that anyone who isn't like you is the problem instead. The world doesn't revolve around you, you easily offended, thin-skinned industry types, and the sooner you realize this, the better off you'll be. But that's enough for now. What do you think about all of this? Is it Steam's moral duty to protect developers from the criticism of customers, or should Steam stay neutral and just exist as a platform? Let me know. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.